Hello everyone, my name's Hollow the Lantern if you don't know me, and today we're going to be doing a tier list. My Discord community has given me a lot of recommendations about what kind of tier listing they would like me to do, and we've picked one and we're going to do it together. The tier list we're going to be making today is Pokemon starters. Oh god, we're starting off controversial, aren't we? Before we get started with this tier list, I do want to lay down a couple ground rules. Number one, we're only going to be tiering Pokemon from the mainline games. So that means Pikachu and Eevee will not be included. And also, we won't be considering any Pokemon from the side games like the Mystery Dungeon series or what have you. And second up, this is largely based on my opinion. How well a Pokemon does in the competitive scape, whether that's in the card game or in the actual games, will not have as much bearing. This is largely going to be more opinion based, but if competitive viability is one of the reasons why I like or dislike a Pokemon, that will be added, and you'll see that in the tier list as we get underway. Speaking of, let's go ahead and get started then. All right, so first up we have Bulbasaur, and I have a bit of an interesting history of Bulbasaur. So I didn't pick Bulbasaur at all in my first run through of Pokemon Red way back when, but I've come around to Bulbasaur actually quite a bit, to the point now where I prefer it. It's actually my favorite starter from the first generation of Pokemon. If I'm picking between these three, I will pick Bulbasaur every single time now. I would put Bulbasaur, I think, in A tier. I think it's very solid as a Pokemon, stats wise, competitive wise, even though that doesn't have too much sway in this tier list. I love its design. I think Ivysaur in particular is the best second form or middle stage design of all the starters. That may be a hard take, but it's my take and I'm standing by it. Definitely Bulbasaur is definitely A tier for me, no doubt about that. Next up is Charmander, and my history with Charmander is also a little bit complicated. This was a starter I picked way back when I first started playing Pokemon, but I think I have what a lot of other Pokemon fans have with Charmander and the entire Charmander line. It's just overexposure. It's everywhere. You see Charizard in all the marketing. Some of the most expensive cards are Charmander related, Charmander Charizard related. You get so many new forms, you get so much love and attention from Game Freak, and yes, it is popular because of that, but also I think people like myself are just kind of tired of it, and we would like to see, if we're going to go with, Gen 1 baiting and all that stuff, there are other options. So Charmander's just gotten a bit boring to me. It's not a bad design, it's just that I'm tired of seeing it. I would put it, honestly, I think it will go B tier, no higher than that. I'm also slightly debating putting it in C tier, but we'll stick to B tier for now. Squirtle is our next tier-y, I guess I'll call it a tier-y. Squirtle's design has always been kind of boring to me. I've never really been interested in Squirtle at all. None of its evolutionary line, even Blastoise with, the big cool cannons and all that stuff, has never really appealed to me at all. I would put Squirtle in C tier. It just doesn't do it for me at all. Onward to Gen 2, and first up Chikorita, and I know this is going to raise a lot of eyebrows, but I will also put Chikorita in A tier. I don't know why I like Chikorita as much as I do Chikorita and the entire line. I think Bayleaf I think the entire line is very well designed, even if, stat wise it is essentially just Bulbasaur again. I do get why people don't like it, but that's never really stopped me from appreciating it as much as I have. So A tier, easy A tier, not better than Bulbasaur, but I do really like it a lot. Cyndaquil is definitely one of my favorite starters. All three of the Gen 2 starters, as a spoiler, are going to get ranked fairly high, and there's a story behind that, and I'll explain that later. But Cyndaquil, the entire Cyndaquil line, we're going to completely ignore that Hisuian Typhlosion story that was leaked or whatever. I'm not paying that any mind. I've always been a very big Cyndaquil fan. Cyndaquil is going to be our first S tier of this tier list. Totodile 2. He's going to be a bit of an outlier when it comes to water starters with me, and you'll see that trend as we go on, but Totodile goes A tier. So the story I mentioned earlier is when I played Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver, well, Pokemon Silver in my case, I used the not necessarily a cheat, but the exploit to allow me to get all 3 starters at the beginning of the game. If you don't know, look it up. That's the only way I play Pokemon Silver, and I've always gotten all 3 starters, which is probably why all 3 of them are ranked very highly for me, because I've always used them and I've gotten very attached to them because of that. So Totodile also gets ranked pretty highly. In A tier, I do really like Feraligator's design altogether, but yeah, definitely A tier design for me. Starting off Gen 3 is going to be our grass type Trico. Trico is probably one of the cooler looking grass type Pokemon. You're going to see another trend with grass types, and that will change eventually, but Trico, I think I would end up putting Trico in A tier as well. Trico is really cool, especially with the Trico that we saw in the anime. Sceptile is one of the cooler looking designs for a final evolution. The lizard with a tree on tree for a tail. I've always really appreciated that. Trico goes A tier without too much of a second thought. Torchic is our next one, and anyone who knows me knows that my second favorite Pokemon of all 1024 is Blaziken. And Torchic being the first form of that makes me biased. You go in S tier. I have a lot of very fond memories with Pokemon Ruby. Made some very good friends with that, and Torchic was the starter that I chose for that game, and I have very fond memories because of that. So Torchic, S tier, no doubt. So now, aside from the memes that like seem to keep popping up for whatever reason, Mudkip has never really done it for me all that much. I don't dislike it. I think it's it being a water ground type is very good and all. It's just I'm not interested in it. I would put it above Squirtle because I don't think its design is as boring as Squirtle's, but still not being ranked very high for me personally. Next up is Gen 4, and we start with Turtwig. Turtwig, I do really like Torterra. It's just that the rest of the line is not it for me. Torterra being cool does put it in B tier for me. I don't find it interesting outside of that. Chimchar I will put in A tier. I will probably put above Chikorita. The inspiration for Chimchar is very cool. I do like the Journey to the West inspiration. Infernape is just a cool looking Pokemon. It just is. Ash's Infernape has some very noteworthy feats that definitely propels my interest in this Pokemon. Easy A tier, no doubt. Piplup. You're seeing the trend now, right? Piplup, not a fan of Piplup. Not a fan of Prinplup. Not a fan of Empoleon. I just don't like them. C tier for Piplup. You're seeing the trend with water types, right? It is what it is. It just is what it is. Now onward to Gen 5, and probably, even though the Gen 5 games, Black, White, Black 2, White 2 are my favorite games, these are, to be fair, my least favorite starters of all of them. Let's go ahead and just start off with Snivy. Snivy, I would put high C tier. Superior, I think, is kind of cool, the regal look of it and all that. Outside of that, doesn't do a whole lot for me. Tepig was the Pokemon that I used in Gen 5. At that point, firefighting fatigue was definitely sinking in, and I really hate the route they took for Tepig in its evolutionary line. Oshawott, I will also put in D tier. I know people are gonna get very upset with me with that, but it is what it is. I just don't like them. I don't know what it is about the Gen 5 starters in and of themselves. They are very uninteresting and underwhelming to me personally. So Oshawott joins Tepig in D tier. Our Gen 6 starters are next. Oddly enough, when it comes to Chespin, I do really like Chestnut. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about it, but the rest of the line is, oh my god, no. Okay, I just thought of Chespin's first evolution. I'm not the biggest fan. No, that drags it down a lot. It's just, no. Chestnut's cool. Chespin is cool. Quilladin is terrible. C tier for you. Just go. Fennekin, I'm not a fan of. This is probably the only fire starter. Well, never mind. Tepig's there too. You go above Tepig because Fennekin does actually look like, it looks kind of cute, right? I don't like Delphox. This is around the time also I started realizing that there's not one fire Pokemon starter that is a quadruped, and I don't know why Game Freak keeps doing that. At least at this point, that changes in a bit, but I don't know. I felt like they could have gone a different route with Fennekin in this evolutionary line, and I was just disappointed in it. Now, Froakie, this is going to be probably the only water type starter that's going to be in S tier. Greninja is amazing. I do like the entire premise of its line. Froakie was the starter that I used in Gen 6 in XY. No regrets there, but I completely love Froakie and its line. Gen 7, which was the generation of games that caused me to take a break from Pokemon for a while. So what I will say is that we will see a shift in our grass types, because actually from this game on, my starters were all grass type. Rowlet was the starter I used in this game, and so on and so forth. Rowlet, I actually do really like. I would put you, I don't know, I don't think I'm gonna put you in S tier though. I think A tier. I do really like the Decidueye's design a lot. Look at Rowlet, it has a little bow tie that turns into a bow, and I think that's just genius. This is also around the time where they started making the starter triplets related to each other in theme. I know they did it to an extent in Gen 5, but Gen 6 also kind of started that trend, I think, and then it kept going from there. So I think the starters are very well designed. It's just, of course, this is going to be my personal feelings about them. Gen 7's Rowlet goes A tier. Now, Litten. I'm not a fan of Litten. This is another case of like, I was looking forward to seeing what they would do with this starter. In this case, Litten, a tiger, and then Incineroar happened. That I could feel that they wanted to make it a firefighting type, but they went fire dark, and their reasoning was just, yeah, sure, okay. Incineroar is also extremely annoying. It's been a metagame staple since it got Intimidate, and I know this tier list doesn't involve meta viability like all that much, but that is a reason why another reason why I don't like this Pokemon all so much, or this evolutionary line. It's just annoying. I don't like it, and its design is disappointing as someone who wanted to see some more creativity, especially out of the fire starters. But no, D tier, you go down there. Poplio is also really not my speed. I like the idea, I just don't like the way it looks. It's just, that's all it is. That's really all it is. I don't mind it. It's not necessarily a bad Pokemon to me. I'm just not a fan of its design. So C tier, I don't think it's a bad one per se, not like the D tier. I don't think it's D tier eligible. I'm just not personally a fan of it at all. Grookey's easy A tier. This was once again the starter I chose in these games. Rillaboom, I really enjoy quite a bit. Thwackey is not bad, because a lot of the middle stage evolutions for these for the starter Pokemon, they're very hit or miss. Like, there's some good ones, like I said, like Ivysaur I think is a good middle stage evolution, for example, and then other than that, they just look bad. This is one of the rare cases I think, like, I look at the middle evolution, I'm like, it's okay. So I think the entire line is solid. I do actually like Cinderace quite a bit. I like the entire line, actually, of Court Bunny quite a bit. I think the starters of Gen 8 are very strong design-wise. I would say the weakest one to me is probably Sobble. I don't like Inteleon all that much, but I do like its design, especially when we pair it with the other two starters in this generation. I think that's where I'm going to put the Gen 8 starters. And then Gen 9, our most recent. Sprigatito is the starter I chose this generation. I do also really like Fuecoco though. I do like Skeledirge a lot. I think its design is really cool. I will put Fuecoco high A tier. And Quaxly, once again, not my speed. I don't think it's poorly designed. It's just not necessarily for me. But I don't think the design is bad at all. So I'll put it in B tier because of that. So that's my tier list. That is every starter from every mainline game ranked one by one from Generation 1 all the way up to Generation 9. Please let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel about my picks. Let me know where you would put some Pokemon at. I'm very interested in hearing about all of that. Definitely leave a comment if you are so inclined. Feel free to like the video because I would like to do more tier lists like this, and feel free to give me any sort of feedback you can think of. It'll definitely help me out because I want to get better at doing this for everybody. But that's all I have. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to follow me on Twitch. That will be in the description below. Thank you all for coming in. Thank you all for watching this video. I appreciate you all. Take care of yourselves in the meantime and live in your light.